Today we're looking at John Smith. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. So, John Smith was an Englishman most noted for helping save the Jamestown colony. Now, before getting into Smith's past or accomplishments, I have to make one note or talk about one glaring issue that we know about John Smith's background. The fact is, John Smith himself wrote much of the history that we know about him. And the fact is, we also know that Smith was basically a shameless promoter who many times bent the truth to make himself appear more heroic. Furthermore, much of the historic record for America in the 15 and 1600s is not 100% clear. So, keeping that in mind, we do not know John Smith's exact birth date, but we know that he was baptized on January 6, 1580 in Alford, Lincolnshire in east central England. From 1592 to 1595, he attended grammar school in Lincolnshire, and at the age of 16, after his father's death, he went to sea and became a mercenary. A mercenary is basically a hired soldier that does not fight for a certain nation, but rather for whoever will pay them. He fought for the French and the Austrians and got involved in trade and piracy in the Mediterranean Sea, traveling through northern Africa and Europe. In 1604, Smith returned to England, where he joined the Virginia Company of London's voyage to the New World to establish a colony. On the voyage itself, Smith was accused of mutiny, which is a rebellion or attempt to overthrow the authorities on a ship. Smith was under arrest for most of the trip, but upon arriving in May of 1607 to America, the crew opened some orders that designated Smith as one of those in charge. So he was released and aided in establishing Jamestown. The colonists at Jamestown, of course, believed they were simply going to find gold and did not bring equipment to survive, and many of the men spent their time looking for gold and refusing to work to survive. John Smith is famously quoted as saying, "He that will not work shall not eat." Smith was instrumental in helping the colony survive, as so many of the first group to arrive began starving and dying from disease. Of the original 104 colonists, less than 50 remained by September of 1607. Now, this brings us to one of the most disputed stories of John Smith's life, and that was his relationship with Pocahontas, the daughter of Chief Powhatan, which was the leader of the Native Americans in the area of Jamestown. As the story goes, Smith was captured by the Powhatan in December of 1607. Smith was taken before Chief Powhatan and his head was placed against a stone, and they were about to hit him in the head with clubs and kill him. Just as they raised their clubs, Pocahontas threw herself on him to stop the execution. Smith was then released. Of course, some have taken it so far as to suggest that Smith and Pocahontas were romantically involved. Only problem is Smith would have been in his late 20s to early 30s, while Pocahontas would have been only 10 or 11 years old when they met. Furthermore, Smith's story was not published until Pocahontas had married John Rolfe, and it was taken to England to promote the Virginia Company and had become a celebrity in England. So the story Smith told was very unlikely. Actually, most historians agree that Smith was captured, but that he was treated well and was never threatened, and in fact the Powhatan offered to trade food with Smith and the colonists at Jamestown. In 1608, Smith did lead an expedition of the Chesapeake Bay area in search of food. He created a map that other explorers used for many years to come. Throughout 1608 and early 1609, more colonists arrived in Jamestown as Smith aided in maintaining trade and a peaceful relationship with Powhatan. Smith was injured in an accidental gunpowder explosion in his canoe and returned to England in October of 1609. He would never return to Jamestown. Upon his departure, Jamestown entered into the winter of 1609, known as the Starving Time, in which most of the colonists died, but more settlers arrived, bringing with them tobacco, which would become the true gold of Jamestown. Smith would return to America in 1614, exploring the coast of Massachusetts and Maine. In 1616, he published a map of the region with the title New England on it, and that is where the region got its title. Smith returned to England and died on June 21st, 1631. Although the actual history of what Smith did is disputed and some of it is unclear, it is evident that Smith played a central role in the establishment of the early colonies in America. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.